Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. This is the Routledge History of Literature in English, part 76. So let's dive in the world of literature. In this video, we will be covering rooms of their own portion. Most histories of literature talk about women's writing as if it were somehow different from men's writing, yet male writers are hardly ever discussed in terms of their gender. In recent decades, there has been a decided shift in perception. Critics like Dale Spender have found as many as 100 good women writers before Jane Austen, and names such as Julian of Norwich, Mary Wortley, Montague, Anne Finch, Winchelsea, Sarah Fielding, and Frances Burney are now taking on a more significant level of importance in the history of creativity and writing. In the early 19th century, a woman like Letitia Elizabeth Landon could actually support herself entirely from her writing, even though she was the exception rather than the rule. Virginia Woolf, in a room of one's own in 1928, famously imagined what would have happened to Shakespeare's sister if she had wanted to become a writer. Social circumstances and lack of money and a room of her own space, would have denied her the possibility of becoming the successful writer her brother became. And the name of the imagined sister of Shakespeare is Judith Shakespeare. In the 1860s, when there had already been a flowering of female novelists such as the Bronte sisters and Elizabeth Gaskell, Mary Ann Evans felt it advisable to hide behind a male name, George Eliot, in order for her novels to reach their audience. Although, when he read her first work, Scenes of Clerical Life, Charles Dickens perceived a female hand at work. Eliot herself wrote a famous essay called Silly Novels by Lady Novelists, criticizing the tradition of light romantic novels with little or no serious social content, which have been a standard feature of publishing from the beginnings right through to Barbara Cartland and similar best-selling romantic novelists in recent years. In recent years, several novelists have hidden their gender behind initials. A.S. Byatt, Antonia, A.L. Kennedy, Allison, and J.K. Rowling, Joanne are three current examples. Barbara Pym used the title Excellent Woman in the 1950s to point up, ironically, patronizing attitudes towards women. Other writers like Pat Barker used gender non-specific names and explored what might in the past have seemed to be the male themes. She wrote a major trilogy on the First World War. Women writers tend to dominate in genres like the detective novel, where Val McDermott, Minette Walters, Ruth Rendell, and P.D. James led the field, and names like Reginald Hill and Christopher Brookmyre find themselves described as male novelists. While Virginia Woolf is the best known in this area, it was Dorothy Richardson who used the stream of consciousness technique most fully. She wrote a sequence of novels under the overall title Pilgrimage between 1915 to 1938, exploring her characters' psychological and motivations in a way that echoes Woolf but with a more rigorous attention to detail. May Sinclair's use of stream of consciousness is perhaps more accessible than Dorothy Richardson's. She wrote novels such as Mary Oliver, A Life in 1919 and The Life and Death of Harriet Frean in 1922, which chart the growth of a heroine from girlhood to unmarried middle age. May Sinclair had achieved great renown with her 1904 novel The Divine Fire. Then she also wrote The Three Sisters in 1914, echoes the lives of the Bronte sisters in its recounting of frustration and creativity. Now comes Katherine Mansfield. She is originally from New Zealand. She wrote works such as The Garden Party, which shows the essence of a relationship, the underlying sadness and solitude of the post-war era. Her earliest novels date from before the First World War in a German pension in 1911, but she preferred her later work, such as Prelude in 1918. Her best work appeared in Bliss and Other Stories in 1920 and The Garden Party and Other Stories dating from that very special year 1922. The Well of Loneliness in 1928 by Radclyffe Hall holds a significant position as the major lesbian novel of its time, where D.H. Lawrence's Lady Chatterley's lover stayed banned until after a famous trial in 1960. The Well of Loneliness was republished in 1949. Rebecca West wrote her first novel, The Return of a Soldier, in 1918. Is the first major description in literature of what it meant to come home from the war, shell-shocked and effectively destroyed as a man. Rebecca West's book on the Nuremberg trials, The Meaning of Treason, in 1949, is equally significant as an examination of the motivations for betrayal of not only nation values but of humanity. Her later novels include The Fountain Overflows in 1956 and The Birds Fall Down in 1966. Rosamund Lehmann wrote works such as Dusty Answer in 1927, which handles a young woman's emotion and sexual awakening in a way that is not far from the style of D.H. Lawrence. A Note in Music in 1930 is similarly frank on the theme of homosexuality. The Weather in the Streets in 1936 takes its heroine through a failed marriage, adultery, and abortion. If you have any doubts or query, you can ask me in the comment section below, or you can even message me in the social media IDs that are given below in the description box. And do share the video to all those who wants to be the part of this literary journey. So that's all for this video. Thank you and signing out.